It's business. It's business time. Even more than last week, it is business time. These are the money matches for huge games coming up in the Champions Cup. It's quarter-final time. We're down to a final 8, and here's my preview of the fixtures that are coming up this weekend. And we've got 3 games on Saturday, back to back to back, and then 1 game on Sunday. I'm going to start with the game that is probably most intriguing and actually probably hardest to call. 2 titans of European rugby, Leinster and La Rochelle. And, well, it's been a final for the last 2 years. It was a semi-final as well. There's no love lost between these two teams. There's an awful lot of respect between the two sides, and La Rochelle will feel like they have got Leinster's number. Equally, Leinster will feel they've got motivation to go out and put things right after the last few years. There have been some epic battles. This game happening at the Aviva Stadium once again, where La Rochelle won their second European title. Is the Aviva Stadium going to be another famous win, or is it going to be where their quest for 3 in a row ends? Only Toulon have ever won 3 in a row. That was the Galacticos team. Can Leinster, led by Munsterman Ronan O'Gara, do it? There's just so many brilliant storylines wherever you look. Just having a look into the form and the way that these two teams are playing. Leinster, they're unbeaten so far in the Champions Cup, and they have racked up points in doing so. They've also racked up points in the URC, where they are currently top of the table there. They've only got 1 defeat at home this season, 37 points. They're averaging every game, and some really good wins in amongst those victories in the Champions Cup, not least against La Rochelle away in horrible conditions. But what they're going to do this time, no lack of motivation for them. La Rochelle have not been playing brilliantly this season. I mean, before I move on to them, Leinster will also feel they've got room to improve. Hasn't quite been as slick in attack as they have been before. Some people saying maybe they're missing Stuart Lancaster a little bit, but I'll tell you what they are doing. They are being stingy in defence. Their defence looks better than it has been, and that's the effect of Jacques Nienaber, you feel. So over to La Rochelle, and they lost their opening 2 games in the Champions Cup. They've gathered a bit of form in the competition. Good win against the Stormers last weekend. Away from home, though, not great. They've got those 2 wins in the Champions Cup away from home, but only 1 win all season in the top 14. Now, that's kind of very much how French rugby goes. Teams win their home games and quite often lose away. But it's the concerning bit for me is that they're not racking up many points. Their attack is not looking great at the moment. And yeah, you see in the Champions Cup, they only got above the 20s, only got above 24 points once. And that was against Leicester at home. So with Leinster's defence being better, with La Rochelle's attack not really firing yet, only twice in the top 14, as I say there, have they scored more than 20 points away from home. This is a tall order for La Rochelle. As good as they are and as classy as the players are, and let's have a look at the teams. When you look at a combined 15 between these two sides, if I just take the players that were on the pitch last week, assuming that Gary Ringrose isn't back, for example, then that's how I would have it. I'd split the pack 4-4, and the backs 4-3 in favour of Leinster. La Rochelle have got really good players. I see this one going Leinster's way. I think they're too stingy in defence, and they'll be too good when they get opportunities. Can La Rochelle do what they haven't been doing this season and score points? I think you're going to need to score 25 to 30 points to beat Leinster at home, and I just don't see La Rochelle doing that. I think Leinster will handle the physical onslaught there's going to be, but it is going to be a very, very physical game, and Ronan O'Gara, tactically brilliant. What's he got up his sleeve for this one? So moving on to this one then, and Northampton against the Bulls. I was really, really excited for this game. I mean, I still am, but there's a caveat there in the sense that the Bulls have not travelled with many of their household names. A lot of their biggest players, Kurtley Arendse, Willie LaRue, Kanan Moody, are staying back in South Africa. And that's just a few of quite a number of names. And I can understand why. I'm disappointed that this has happened. We heard earlier this week that the Bulls were travelling to England on 8 different flights. And this is one of the logistical issues with the Champions Cup. Having these back-to-back knockout games when you don't know who the opponent is going to be the following week, it's difficult enough when you're travelling from England to France or from Ireland to France or England or whatever it is. But when you're travelling from South Africa, that makes it really, really difficult. And these two back-to-back games, followed by URC matches with the playoff hunt very much the focus for the Bulls, knowing that they could go back to the URC for a couple of weeks and then have to be travelling to, where is it, Dublin? They would, or France, if they win. It's really tough. So I'm disappointed, and it's a shame that the Bulls have prioritised the URC over this tournament, but I guess I understand it. When you look at the form, Northampton have been in a rich vein of form this season, unbeaten in the Champions Cup so far, averaging 32 points, about the same as they average in the Premiership, where they've won 6 out of their 7 home games. They lost their opening game of the season at home, and then they've won everything since. They're in first place, they're playing brilliant attacking rugby, and they've had some really good wins in this competition already. I think they are now, I would put them marginal favourites to beat the Bulls. If the Bulls had sent their first choice team, I see them as not comfortable. The Bulls will put up a fight, but I see them as pretty handy favourites for this one now. With the Bulls, 4 wins in the Champions Cup, racking up some points, and they've got no trouble scoring points. Away from home, slightly less, and they've won half of their games in the URC away from home. But they had that really good win away against Bristol, and they put up a good fight away against Lyon. I just think, short of their class players, the international standard is not where the Bulls would want it. I can only see this going one way, and 2 home wins so far is what I'm saying. As we move on to Bordeaux versus Quins, this is such a sexy fixture. You look across both teams, there are just ballers everywhere, and this could be the most entertaining, could actually be the most unpredictable game, because both of these teams are capable of having brain fart moments and imploding, or more likely just scoring hatfuls of points and busting the game wide open. It's going to be in front of a really noisy Bordeaux crowd that have been to semi-finals, been close, and got very, very close to winning this tournament, but want to go one step further. Do they have the team to do it? I mean, it's looking very much the case. When you look at Bordeaux's form, just that one solitary defeat to the Bulls away, that was an absolute humdinger of a game. But other than that, look at the points they're racking up, averaging 43 points a game in the Champions Cup. And at home, they're racking up 27 points a game in a very attritional top 4 team, where they've won 9 out of 11 matches at home. They had 2 defeats during the Six Nations. So they've only lost matches at home when they've been without Damien Penaud, Maxime Luku, Yoram Moefana, Louis Bielbire, and Nicolas Deportier. 5 of France's backline, or squad players in their backline, weren't there, and then they lost. When they have a full strength team, they win at home, and you can understand why, because Damien Penaud is, I would argue, the best winger in the world, along with maybe Cheslin Colby, Kurtley Arendse, and maybe Mark Telea as well in the conversation. But Penaud is just ridiculous. Bordeaux have just got absolute ballers everywhere. Quins aren't too shabby in that department either, and you can see from the Champions Cup, they're scoring 35 points a game, and they've got some really good wins. Away at Racing, that was an excellent victory. They looked good against Glasgow. For the first half, they were incredible. Then they let the foot off the gas. They cannot do that against Bordeaux. They're going to need to bring their A game for 80 minutes in order to win. They're riding in the playoff spots in the Premiership at the minute. Mixed bag away from home, only 3 wins out of 7 and scoring 23 points away from home. And that's the challenge for Quins. Can they raise their game and play the way they do quite often at the Stoop in purple patches, but can they take that on the road and deliver for an 80-minute performance? I'd say it's a tough ask for Quins. They're capable of it with guys like Marcus Smith, Danny Kerr, Alex Dombrandt, Andre Esterhazen. If you were knocking together a combined 15, then I would say from the players that were playing last weekend, it would look something like that, with a smattering of Quins, but predominantly a Bordeaux team, I think, in front of their home crowd, with all the expectation, all the talent they've got, and the heavies as well, with guys like Ben Tamifuna. I think this will be Bordeaux's day. Quins should make it very exciting, though. We will see. I cannot wait for that one. And finally, Toulouse against Exeter. This is a fixture that you might remember from years gone by, the year when Exeter won the tournament in 2020. They beat Toulouse in the semi-final, and I think they beat Toulouse the year before. I want to say they beat Toulouse the year before away as well. They're going to have to win away against Toulouse, who look absolutely amazing. Look at Toulouse's record so far this season in all competitions. 5 out of 5 in the Champions Cup, 41 points a game. Some really dominant wins in amongst those. And not least last week against Racing 92. And in the top 14, they're second currently. They've won every game at home and they're racking up points as well. They will score points. Exeter, they've been so spirited, so brave. They're a bunch of kids though. They've done really well. I think Exeter will look back on this season in the Champions Cup after this weekend. I mean, if they win, obviously, okay, if Exeter win, they've won the tournament before. Okay, they have won a Champions Cup final. They have lifted the trophy. And I will say, if they win this quarter-final match, it will be the greatest result in Champions Cup history for Exeter Chiefs. That is the scale of what is in front of them now. This will outclass winning the tournament in 2020 if they manage to pull this one off, because Toulouse are just different gravy with the players they've got in their team. And the context here is Exeter Chiefs, when they won the Champions Cup, they spent 4, 5, 6 years building their squad, losing important games, getting closer, winning, and then eventually winning the whole thing. This is starting again from scratch, and basically in year 1 they're in the last 8 in Europe, and that is phenomenal for a bunch of kids. And incredible coaching again by Rob Baxter. I think whatever happens this weekend, they can look on this season as a massive success, and they'll switch their focus to trying to get a playoff spot in the Premiership. Look at the points away in the Premiership. In the Champions Cup, they're averaging 21 points a game, and in the Premiership away from home, they're averaging 17 points a game. Against Toulouse, that's just not enough, and I cannot see an Exeter win in this one. If you were coming up with a combined team, well, I've just got Henry Slade in there. I mean, there's a lot of good players. David Jenkins would run the Thibaut Flamont close, and Ross Vincent's playing really well at number 8. Oh, sorry, I should have Emmanuel Faye-Waboso in blue as well. I apologise. 2 Exeter players, Henry Slade and Emmanuel Faye-Waboso. My mistake there. But there you go. I think that gives you an idea of the magnitude of the task. Probably not going to happen for Exeter. And on the basis of what I've said, I see, and I can only really see, 4 home wins. The Bulls could spring a surprise, no question. It's a shame about the personnel they've brought. Quins could spring a surprise, although I'd say unlikely. I cannot see Exeter winning. And La Rochelle, of course, could win. But I see the final 4 being Leinster, Toulouse, Bordeaux and Northampton Saints, which is a pretty, in terms of the way they play, the matchups that we're going to get in the semi-finals, that could be amazing. But that's after we enjoy these quarter-final games. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on the channel, leave your comments down below, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next one.